Thank you, listeners, for joining us today. This edition of Elko Live here on KELK is our Tuesday program in which we're dedicated to Elko City news. And in advance of this afternoon's regular session, we have our Elko City Manager, Jan Baum, joining us. Welcome, Jan.
Thank you, Lori. Nice to be here.
Oh, it's great to see your smiling face and to know how busy the city is, and there's a lot of progress ahead of us. And it looks like we may have ridden the literal wave of the flooding, right? We still have some snow to come down, but things looking pretty good.
Things are looking pretty good. The river is rising a little bit because of the melt-off out in the mountains. And since we're talking about that, I just want to reiterate again, there's an Elko County hotline for flooding. If you have any flood incidents or questions, the flood hotline for the Elko County is 775-777-2574. And that's the best way to get information or to report a flooding incident.
And that can be for private or public property, right, Jan? I mean,
absolutely.
The city or county might not be able to do something on the private, but they need to know because it could be impacting other areas too.
Yes. Or if they're taking on water or anything like that. And the river, it is going to rise a little bit. We're staying within the banks and hoping that we remain that way.
Yeah, the good news is that all hands on deck. Everybody is well prepared in advance this time, very unlike 2017. So it sounds as though the city and the county are working really closely together.
Yes, and I think 2017 was a lot different. There was a lot of rain that came, and that's unexpected, and people aren't used to that, especially in February or when that happened. And so this time we're lucky, knock on wood, that we're melting off slowly. So hopefully that continues.
That's a great update from our city manager, Jan Baum. Again, the regular council meeting begins at 4 o'clock today, and several ways for listeners to participate. You can go to virtual meeting. There's a link to that on the city's website. You can certainly attend in person at City Hall. I know that you always like to see people because it means that they're, active and involved in the management of the city, which is nice.
Absolutely. And we always welcome public input.
Thanks, Jan. So first on the agenda today, there'll be a proclamation. The mayor is going to recognize Arbor Day.
Yes, which is a great follow-up to Clean Up, Green Up that happened on Saturday. And I think just driving around, but there's a big difference. And we had a really nice turnout. I want to say they said around 700 people or something. So great turnout. We hope for even more next year, but I think it really helped.
Yeah, and thanks to Addie and the crew, everybody who worked. I know she has a volunteer committee, and they work for months in advance getting ready for this, Jan.
They absolutely do. They work really hard at it, and of course, they were all there on Saturday, and they were. And I think it went off very well, and anyway, so a lot of pink T-shirts out in the community on Saturday.
Nice. And those who participated get a voucher for a free landfill for at least the rest of this week, which is really cool. And speaking of landfill, we should probably mention that I think beginning in July, those landfill rates will increase.
Yes, the landfill rates are going to increase. The minimum tipping fee will go from $5 to $10, and then the tonnage rate will go from $34 a ton to $40.
And again, that was not unanticipated because the cost of things are simply going up, right, Jan?
Absolutely. When we replace equipment up at the landfill, it has a high price tag, and then there's a lot of other permitting and different fees that go with the landfill as well. And it's a great regional asset to the city of Elko and actually the whole county. And so we need to make sure it's in compliance and we have good equipment that takes care of all of the debris up there.
Yeah, and the landfill, again, is really a very well-run facility. It's been held up in the past as, as sort of a state model for landfills of its size.
They do an amazing job up there, and they have a very small staff up there, and Shane Fertig does a great job, and we're lucky to have that group up there, and they would do a great job.
And in fact, a few weeks ago when the city announced that there would likely be an increase at the landfill, you sought public comment and opinions, and you really didn't get back very much, if any, negative comment, Jan, right?
Not a lot. There were a few comments from, we did a business impact statement that went to thousands of businesses in town, and we did receive, I would say, 10 to 12 responses, but out of thousands, that isn't a whole lot as a percentage. But we did receive that there would be some impact to business, but City Council made the decision that it was still necessary to increase the prices.
All right. Anything else that maybe jumps out from the most recent council meeting before we dive into today's agenda completely? Or
I apologize, but I'm
on
really
today.
focused on today. I don't have anything right now that I can bring up, but as we go along, if I think of something, I'll for sure bring it up.
That's perfect, Jen. And
Thank you.
I absolutely, I'll do the same too. I know that there's a few legislative issues pending, and one of them's on the agenda today. The police department's going to give their annual report, and I told Jan that our Chief Ty Troughton and Sheriff Aitor Narveza are scheduled guests on Elko Live on Thursday, so they're probably going to go over that in detail. But this is something that's really valuable to the citizens because, you hear things or you read things on social media, and so that tends to inflate or get people excited or frightened about things, and it's good to get the facts, and that's what this report has.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of statistics in there, and he will get into the details on Thursday, but they're a busy group as well, and they do an amazing job for our city, and we're so thankful that they're there, and they get a lot of calls, and they're a busy group. So
yeah, they're there day and night for us. So the police department, Chief Ty Troughton will give the 2022 annual report during this afternoon's regular council meeting. The next item might take up a bit more time. There's a lot attached to this. It's been an ongoing issue, Jan, and I know that this is the first time it's appeared on the agenda, but it doesn't mean that it's the first time it's been brought to the city's attention. In fact, looking at the documentation, the city's been working with community development and the city's attorney ongoing violations of city code, including for public nuisance at what's called the Elko Inn, but it seems like it's a derelict property right now occupied by squatters. Sadly, it's right there in plain view at 837 Idaho Street.
yes, it's right in the heart of our city, unfortunately, and yes, the community development group is working very hard on this, and we know there is a lot of public passion behind this, and we understand, and actually we just I met down there just recently with the mayor and Claire Morris, and it's unfortunate, and so it'll be good to have a presentation, have some facts out there. I believe there'll be some public opinion that will probably be presented as well, and so we can get this out in the open and see what the steps are going forward.
In fact, it's been an ongoing issue since I think even the first of the year. Problems with, now there's some really vulgar graffiti on the side of the building. There are squatters. They are known drug users. There's evidence of drug use going on. And they're about $10,000 behind, I think, in water bills. So the water's now been shut off.
Yes, the water was shut off last week. And thank heavens, when I was there earlier, I drove by today, the graffiti, the vulgar language that was on the side of the building has been painted over, which is a relief. And a lot of the garbage has been picked up, which is also a relief. There's a big dumpster out front now. So there has been some cleanup, which is a positive outcome. It's positive, but it's just not enough. And so the city needs to move forward with this.
All right.
Nuisance.
And you'll be hearing from the city attorney and others during this afternoon's meeting. Again, it's been an ongoing issue. And so, I know probably the biggest question, Jan, and people wonder how come the city couldn't take action sooner, or what is the process that goes into something like this?
It's quite a process, and
because I know, well, the owner's also, it's important to know, the owner is out of state, so in West Jordan, Utah, and
yes,
so
he is out of state, and they've had some phone calls with him, and notified him that this is unacceptable for our community, and so it is quite a process to declare a property a nuisance. The city has gone through this before, so we do have a process, and so far there has been several complaints, and then the community development manager put these complaints together and presented them as a nuisance complaint, and then she's done an investigation, and then we will present that to our attorney and then decide whether to go down like a court path or whether we go with the city council and the nuisance path.
Okay, so there could be even more stringent actions forthcoming. This is the first
Absolutely.
this is the first time it's been on the agenda. So just for the benefit of listeners, it is a work in progress. It has been determined, or should be during this afternoon's meeting, there's a health and safety hazard, certainly. And, it's difficult because you can't tell people what to do with their property, and that's been part of the issue. Mm-hmm. But at a certain point when it becomes a hazard and a safety violation, and then again, crimes are being committed, because I think you'll also have the police chief talking about having responded there something like 50 times.
Yes, Police Chief Troughton will also be there to support this nuisance complaint. And yes, the police have been spending a lot of time at that address, and which is concerning to the neighbors, both businesses and residential. And we, and that in turn is concerning to the city.
All right. So again, that's the property at 837 Idaho, known today as the Elko Inn, and that will be on the agenda. So if you have an interest in that, again, you can be there in person or you can follow along online, Jan.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the update on that one.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see if we're moving along the agenda here. Just wanted to make sure we're getting to, there'll be introduction of some new personnel, which is great. It looks like you've got a golf course maintenance technician and some other folks hired on at the golf course.
Yes, we're excited about that. And so the golf course is pretty much fully staffed, which hasn't happened for a while. So we're excited about that. And so, yes, a couple employees for that, and then also an airport operations maintenance officer, which is also exciting for Jim. He's been low staff for quite a while as well, and so it's great to see employee introductions.
So there'll be Bruce Canfield, Airport Operations Maintenance Officer, Jacob Listers, hired on at the golf course as a maintenance tech, and a lead golf course maintenance tech, which is a promotion for Greg Thomason.
Yes, it is.
Very cool. Then if we move into some new business here, there is, this is the city working on some of the legislative issues. We know that there is air service development in progress, and hearing good things about that, right? It advanced to Ways and Means.
Exactly. We had a good hearing at the Finance Committee, and Bert Gurr headed that, and Jim and I also presented as well, or testified. And then, yes, so it's AB 429. On our website, we have a letter of support if anybody in town is interested in, or even out of town, just within the region, if anybody is interested in supporting AB 421 or 429, we'd be happy to send the letter and the text of the bill. So this bill will hopefully really help the Elko Regional Airport, and it funds the Nevada Aviation Commission Fund, and which primarily is for intra-state travel with air travel within the state of Nevada, which is important. And it was interesting during the hearing to listen to the assemblywoman actually say, "I can't believe in the city of Elko we are sending people out of state to fly to Reno or to Vegas." And she's absolutely right. In order to go anywhere, we have to go to Salt Lake first.
Yep, and that is news to a lot of people who are in the position to make these decisions. So good presentation. It sounds like maybe people are finally on board and they understand. I mean, we can't connect to other airports within our state.
Right. We have no intrastate travel, and actually for the hearing, Jim and I were discussing whether to. It was maybe, we only testified for a couple minutes, but we were debating doing the 5-hour trip to Carson City just for that. And that's what we will do when it goes to the Ways and Means Committee. I do want to mention, though, we are very thankful for our flight too, with SkyWest to Salt Lake City. And we're thankful to have it, but we would really like to have some intrastate travel as well.
Right. SkyWest has been a great partner with the city, and in fact, they are the premier regional carrier. They're also facing a lot of the same extreme challenges that the airline industry is, large and small, throughout the country right now. So.
Oh, absolutely. And the pilot shortage is having a lot of impact on SkyWest, and we're just thankful that they are continuing to service the Elko region.
Yes, thanks, Jan, for the update there. The city has also extended the minimum air service guarantee for a time.
Yes, we renewed for another quarter. That has been renewing by quarter rather than annually recently, but we just renewed for April through June for $365,000.
Okay, so that'll get us, keep us flying at least through June. And again, that's why it's important, whether you're in business or a recreation traveler, just somebody who's been really interested in wondering why we don't have this kind of air service. If you go to the elkocity.com website, you can find that link there and, draft your own letter of support or sign on to that one. So
yes, either way. And this letter on the website actually can be personalized very easily. And if that is filled out, if they want to send it to either the Elko City Clerk or myself, we'll make sure it gets to the correct people.
Thank you, Jan. Jan Baum is our Elko City Manager. Also under new business today, discussion of opposing Senate Bill 226. This one relates to public works, and it would impact any number of projects, especially in rural communities where governments partner with private or other agencies, nonprofits, for example, to perform, construction projects or to occupy lands that are retained by governments. There are several examples, including our very own Elko Area Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, so we have several examples. We've been digging for the examples, actually, but we have several nonprofit organizations in town that either lease land from the city or have been conveyed land from the city in the past or may in the future. And I strongly believe that in rural communities, these are partnerships that help the community as a whole and really help a lot of our underserved folks in the community, and they're just so important. And so this is concerning. And then if any of those organizations that were wanting to do a construction project that cost over $100,000, that would be subject to public works, which in turn is prevailing wage. And so this can add anywhere between 30 and 40% to a construction project for these organizations. And I hate to see these organizations that are really impacting our community. We hate for that public-private partnership to have to be impacted.
And the trouble with mandating something like this too, Jan, I think we've probably discussed this before, and even with other city officials, is that we already have sort of a ceiling of our own, because our local wages are often driven by the mining wages, which we know are, equal to, if not higher in some cases, to the prevailing wage. And so, often it can be hard to get a contractor anyway to do a project.
Yes, I recently was having a conversation with a representative from a person who represents the unions in our community, and he did indicate to me he really has a difficult time finding labor, and so that could impact this as well.
And then it's also the biggest projects that it could impact, although we don't know if it's retroactive, if it were to be passed. I mean, those are so many questions that are still out there. Obviously, could impact places that already exist, properties that are already occupied, but the big projects are the city swimming pool, recreation center, and or the event center. Those are the big ones, right, Jan?
Those two are, you're right, those two projects are on the forefront and are coming up soon. And again, the way the bill is written, it's difficult to interpret. If it goes back to partnerships that we've already had in the past, or if it does not go backward, there's many different opinions as far as that, and whether contracts are already in place or they're not in place, and so it's difficult to determine, but it very well could impact that.
And we do know that in Southern Nevada, I mean, some of this may have been driven by the decision by the Oakland A's. They're relocating, and they're looking at a $1.5 billion stadium that would be built in
Las Vegas.
In Las
right?
Vegas, public-private partnership, but they're used to paying the prevailing wage.
Right. So, and big organizations, I think, I don't want to speak for them really, but the organizations that I am concerned about are these smaller, local nonprofits in our community that are really providing a service to our community that, and I listed a few in the letter, but so some of the services that are provided in our community are domestic violence facilities, services for our homeless, child care, mental health services, before and after school care, and services for our veterans. And so these are some of the organizations that would be impacted. And small organizations, increasing costs even by tens of thousands is a lot to them. Whereas the Oakland A's, I don't know, increasing by 10 to 20,000 might not be as big of a deal for them, but they are to our local organizations.
So that will be discussed, and the city is likely to, city council is likely to approve a letter, and I think you've got a draft in front of you that's ready to be approved, and you'll be discussing that. There is a piece of, I don't know if it's companion legislation, Jan, but what can you tell us about SB 433?
SB 433 is very similar and has some language about the Nevada Labor Commission and the prevailing wage and how that goes. I think it kind of goes hand in hand with 226, but it's very similar. So the letter is actually the same.
Okay, so that will be,
but indicates the different SB 226 or 433 rather than 226.
We do know that House leadership from both sides in both houses support SB 226, and that's what makes it also a little more daunting, and that's why you need to hear from the community about, again, these concerns and where it could take us. So that'll be on this afternoon's agenda as well. There's also discussion under item D of new business regarding the compliance or initiation of an investigation into a liquor license holder in downtown Elko doing business as the Punch Bowl.
Yes, so there's been some complaints and having to do with the Punch Bowl, and I think in general it's just important for people to know that a liquor license is a privilege. And I hear the police chief say this a lot when he is issuing liquor licenses, but it is a privilege, and there are standards and rules that need to be followed when you have a liquor license. And so this particular establishment, there's quite a few complaints against this establishment, and so we're going to put that in front of council.
All right, so there'll be some discussion of that during this afternoon's meeting as well. And I know the city has been very active in helping, and I guess it's just nothing like it used to be a few years ago, Jan, when there was a lot of over-serving and there were a lot of problems and crime and, considering the amount of alcohol that was being served. But it seems as though the majority of those who hold liquor licenses now are very responsible. So that's why it comes to the attention of the council when someone may not be.
Right, you're right. We have some very diligent businesses that hold liquor licenses, and they do a great job, and that's expected because it's a privilege to have a liquor license. And so you're right. So then when there's complaints, then it's definitely brought to the attention of City Council.
All right. Sliding into the last page of the agenda in time for this afternoon's meeting. That begins at 4 o'clock at City Hall, 1751 College Avenue. If you want to be there in person, there's going to be consideration to maybe make some changes, some revisions to Chapter 3 of the Animal and Fowl of the Elko City Code. What might that be about, Jan?
Yes, we've been working with Elisa. So Elisa Mangum is the manager of the animal shelter. She's been doing this for about 6 months, and she's doing a great job. And there are some changes. A lot of it is kind of a housekeeping thing, but there's some changes that we would like to make to that to this code, and some of it has to do with the holding period of animals. I know that is concerning to Elisa because right now we have I believe it's a 7-day holding period, and she would like to decrease that to a 5. The NRS, I believe, is 3, but sometimes we hold these animals. It's difficult for the animal to be caged up for long periods of time, and so she would like to. That's one of the major changes that she would like to make. So we'll be putting that together and presenting it at the next council meeting, I believe.
All right, so that'll be discussed or at least considered during this afternoon session, and I'm sure that there'll be people who will chime in anytime there's an animal issue, right? It seems like people get very interested.
Absolutely, and this item is just saying to council that we are going to start looking at this code and making some changes, but this does not have the specific changes.
Okay, so that's the front runner. And then also there's a possible resolution to maybe transfer land with Nevada Department of Transportation transferring to the city the northern frontage road of exit 298. And that's getting ready for maybe some more development out there?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's part of the frontage road by exit 298, and we've been working on that property. It's been ever since Komatsu went into or expanded there, and they're about to have another expansion, I believe. And so yes, they'll just help us with development out at exit 298.
Well, that's good news. And then the city will continue to maintain that, because I believe the city does the city maintain the old Highway 40?
That is a very good question. I don't know, Lori, but I can find that out.
We will probably both find out during this afternoon's meeting, so that'll be interesting to see. But it's always good to find out about more development, and it's good to know Komatsu's expanding, because that has been very enriching to cities' sales and use taxes.
Absolutely. They're a great organization, and we're happy that they joined us.
Well, and speaking of, it looks like a new Dottie's Casino is being considered right now at a South 5th Street location.
Yes. So that development project there's some FEMA regulations that are going to come into place but aren't into place yet, and it seems like maybe Dottie's is going to be built right in the middle of the FEMA regulations changing, and so we just want to get this variance out in front of council before they begin their construction.
So that's at 404 South 5th Street, in the vicinity, I think, across from the Joe's Roadside.
Yes,
is that right?
I believe so.
Behind the Ellison property, I think, the 2-story retail buildings there, commercial buildings.
That's exactly right.
All right. So a Dottie's Casino is headed for that location. And then this is also wrapping up business and getting ready for John and Audrey Carr to do business as the club at Ruby View, and that's their retail liquor license.
Yes, and it's a ratification of the issuance of the temporary. Chief Troughton is asking for that ratification.
All right. And then moving on to a public hearing, there's a second reading and possibly adopting an ordinance to change the zoning from general commercial to general industrial for just under 0.621 acres of property, rezoning it. And this would be the second reading. What property is that, by the way? Do you know?
It's on BFW, and it's so it's kind of a strange piece of property. I guess there's 2 zonings on the same property, and so it's kind of a housekeeping item, and it's been presented in Planning Commission, and now this is the second reading for City Council.
Oh, that's probably why it's just not a real complete agenda item, because it doesn't look like, that's just a tiny sliver of property. So
it is a sliver, and it's because it was zoned differently a long time ago, and I think it just needs to be cleaned up. And there's a towing company that's going to go there, I believe, Atlas, and so we're just cleaning that up for them.
Nice. That'll be great. Again, any infill that we can do. And I did want to mention, just since the last time we met, Jan, the city council meeting, you did have a public hearing on putting in the townhomes there at 5th and Ash Street. Can you just give us an update, on the progress? Because it's a temporary use permit, right, to go forward on that?
So they did decide to go forward on authorizing that. I believe it was 9 or 12 units on that land at 5th and Ash, I believe. And so that was presented. It looks like a nice little project. And there were some citizens that were a little concerned about traffic, and I understand that. It's especially 6th Street, it's a quiet little neighborhood right there, and they're a little concerned about traffic. But with the number of units, and most of them are, I believe, they're single bedroom units, and so I don't think a lot of traffic will be generated there, just because it will probably be either one family or one single person. And so it looks like a nice little project, and it'll be nice to have something on that corner.
All right. So we should start seeing construction then?
I believe so. I don't know exactly where they are in their construction process, but they have been authorized to go forward, so it'll be great.
Okay, so we'll look forward to seeing that happening in the neighborhood as well. Jan, thank you. Is there anything else before we send you on your way?
I don't have anything right now. I just appreciate you having me, and the agenda doesn't look too full, but I think there'll be some items of discussion this afternoon. So if anybody's interested in joining us, they're more than welcome. 4 o'clock at 1751 College Avenue.
Thank you, Jan Baum, our Elko City Manager. Our guest on Elko Live, as we do on Tuesdays, covering city news and issues. Thank you, listeners, for joining us today.